name is Milton, and I'm an alcoholic. Didn't have to drink today, and that's a miracle. Because we're in the waterfront group, there's quite a few of you in here that remember Joe. In honor of him, I'd like to do a little Joe imitation here. Joe went all over the country speaking. He was a great speaker, and people loved him a lot. Anyway, he would give a flowery introduction. He'd say it, ever since he'd been knowed how to sober and stuff, and he never gave the same one exact spiel every single time. But anyway, toward the end of it, he would say, "Well, I've been sober since October the 26th, 1969. Now, I know that don't impress y'all none, but impresses the hell out of me." That's my Joe imitation. We love you, old buddy. I think tonight, first I want to say thanks for having me here. It's a real honor. We're not going to do a group fifth step here tonight, but I'm going to share a few things that happened along the way. And some of these things that happened, I want to make it very clear. They did not cause me to become an alcoholic. Okay? I just want to get this straight. I'm an alcoholic because I'm allergic to alcohol. I have an allergy to it. It affects me differently than the average drinker. Alcohol is classified for you pharmaceuticals types as a depressant, but not for me. Alcohol was an accelerant. Alcohol was kind of like rocket fuel. It really got me going. I reacted differently to alcohol than most people. So that's the physical part. There's also a mental part, and the book talks about how it's hard for us to admit that we're physically and mentally different than our fellows. So I want to give a quick little story about this mental thing, this mental part of alcoholism. I had been sober way more than 25 years. I was living in a two-story house at Kingwood. We had a swimming pool, had two waterfalls. All my kids had cars. My wife had a brand new Pathfinder. I was working for some rich and famous people. Had all the boxes checked, right? Doing great. My shop was in downtown Humble and on First Street, and I was heading back over and I was cutting through, and I don't know if y'all remember or know about the place. Hey, George. There's Pancho's Mexican Buffet. It's still sitting there. And right out behind that buffet, they moved it, but there was a dumpster right behind there in that alleyway. And I'm driving down there, and at that time, they walked out there, and there were two huge trays of food, and they were dumping them in that dumpster. And you know what I thought? Wow, that's a good dumpster. Make a note of that. Now, where did that come from? I never crawled in a dumpster for food in my life, but I had making a mental note, that's a good dumpster, in case I might need it someday. That's part of the mental thing here. And then the other is a spiritual dis-ease, a dis-ease. And I came here with dis-ease. My mother, they made her write a bunch of stuff before she passed, and they said that I was a colicky baby. I cried and screamed and hollered for the first month they brought me home. I did not want to be here, people. I did not want to be here. Did not like being here at all. And from the time my very first remembrances, well, let's just put it like this. When I was 3.5 years old, my mom, she had blood clots in her legs and she had trouble with her babies. And I was the oldest, and my brother was born 1.5 years, and when I was 3.5 years old, my second brother was born. And my dad was at Gulf Coast Bible College in the daytime. He worked Cameron Iron Works at night. He was a workaholic. He was never there. My mom was the dorm mother in this this Bible college. They were the only married couple there, and so she was like the dorm mother. And she was not in good shape. Her hands broke out. Anyway, she was in not good shape. So anyway, she decided to put us kids down for a nap. I'm 3.5. Baby's just home from the hospital. Well, I didn't want to take a nap. So I gave her a little problem, so she gave me a whipping. Okay, so anyway, I got up. She went out there and whipped me again, second time. So anyway, I started crying, and you know how babies fake cry? So anyway, I laid in that little bed, and I fake cried for a while until she got up to whip me for the third time. And I just bellied up and said, I wouldn't cry for her. I just looked her right in the eye, and she kept beating on me until she started crying. And that's the kind of kid I was. Well, guess what happened when Daddy came home? Guess what happened when Daddy came home? Daddy took that belt off, and I'm going to tell you what, I cried. And from then on, my mother never tried. My daddy did the whippings. So anyway, I hope this is all going to come out right in the end. I don't know. But anyway, his first little church was in a little community out in Louisiana, and I was 5 years old. And we moved out there, and it was his very first church. And he was doing his very first wedding. And they were having a wedding rehearsal. And out in the parking lot, they had big rocks. The parking lot was made out of rocks. So there was a bully, an older guy there. He was 12, I was 5, and he was hitting me with rocks. So I picked up a rock and I hit him right here in the mouth. Blood's coming out, knocked his tooth out. He runs into the church crying and screaming. I thought, oh shoot, I'm in trouble. So I took off running for the field. There was a field 100 yards long. My uncle's sighted rifle, so I know how long it was. And I went into the woods, and here comes my daddy with that belt. Uh-oh. Anyway, I met him about halfway, and he beat me every step of the way, all the way home. Never said a word, never said, what happened? Why did you hit him with a rock? No question. It's just a beating. There were a couple more beatings after that. But what I'm trying to say is what happened is that I got to where I would do anything to keep from getting a beating from my dad. So there were a couple of bullying incidents that happened when we moved to North Alabama. We moved there for 8 years. And I would not take up for myself. I would not stand up to bullies or anybody else so that I wouldn't get that whipping from my daddy. And I felt like a coward my whole life. And if you flash forward in drinking years and you saw me, you saw the angriest, rageful little son of a bitch you ever laid eyes on. All that stuff filled up. Again, Mom and Dad they were preachers. I was a preacher's kid. I was expected to be a certain kind of way and whatever. So when I was 12 years old, they had a revival, and I went down to the front to get saved. And I'm down there, I'm kneeling and I'm waiting for Jesus or something to jump on me, because I'm wanting to be good. I'm wanting to get in with the program here. You know, we went to church 3 times a week and all that other stuff, and but nothing happened. Nothing really happened. But anyway, I tried to do the deal. So anyway, they baptized me and all that, and anyway, I tried real hard. I got the Bible. I got my little King James Bible, and 12 years old at night, I got a flashlight in bed when I'm supposed to be sleeping, and I'm reading the King James Bible, trying to figure this thing out, wanting to be good, wanting to do the deal. Now, the Church of God, their headquarters were in Anderson, Indiana. They were kind of like Baptists on steroids, okay? Wasn't no smoking, wasn't no drinking, there wasn't no dancing. They didn't like TV, they didn't like movies. Sex, of course not. There was no such thing as sex. You couldn't even talk about it. And they didn't have, like our good Catholic friends, they didn't have confession. You know, you wasn't supposed to mess up, okay? You just weren't allowed. Well, I tried really hard to be good, and you know, guess what? I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And I looked around and I didn't see these spiritual people doing it either. And I knew what it said in that Bible because I had read it and I'd sat in all those classes. So anyway, by the time I was 15, I began to read these philosophers, and I became an atheist. Decided that God was for weak people and stupid people. I decided that philosophers died on troubled beds, and I was a philosopher. I'd probably going to have to do that because I was so much smarter than everyone else. So what I want to tell you again is that I got things wrong as a very young child. I got some things wrong. And I liken it to, for example, if you're a kid and you're learning math and you get it in your head, or you're taught wrong, or you get it in your head that 2 + 2 = 5. Well, guess what? You're going to have trouble with math. You're going to have trouble with math. Well, you got that part. Now, some parts you may get right. The other thing about getting things wrong is that I don't care how hard you work at it, you're still going to be wrong. I don't care how much you pray to God, you're still going to be wrong. I got some basic things wrong. First thing I got wrong was about me. I thought I was smarter than everyone else. I really did. I really did. I had outfoxed my mom a few times. I thought I was smarter than everyone. I really, truly did. And I got to be honest with you, I felt that for a long, long, long time. Thought that I was smarter than everyone. That is not true. That is false. I got things wrong about this planet, about you, what you were and everything, and I got things completely wrong about God. Completely wrong about God. So I kept having trouble. Dis-ease. I was out of ease. I used to ask my parents if I was adopted. I didn't feel like I was in the right family, okay? I was always at dis-ease. So anyway, we moved to Texas when I was a sophomore. We came back here to the big city. I love the big city. Be intoxicated by those beautiful signs, lighted signs at night. And man, I could not wait to get out of that little small town in Alabama. It was a dry county, and oh man. So anyway, it was a brand new world. And anyway, as soon as I could, I wanted to be in sports, but I wasn't big enough, fast enough, strong enough, good enough. I love sports because it was an individual thing that you could do by yourself, but I just couldn't do that. So anyway, I began to. I had some success in high school. I started a group called the Student Union. I wish Lee was here today. Lee went to South Houston High School also. And the Pasadena Independent School District, if your hair was as long as mine is now, they'd send you home. The surfers couldn't wear their surfing t-shirts. Cowboys couldn't wear their boots or their hats. So anyway, I put together a group called the Student Union, and we were going to protest these repressive things that the Pasadena Independent School District was doing. Got with an old boy in Westbury, and we had a rally. We were going to have a rally to let everyone know that we ought to be able to grow our hair if we wanted to. And we passed the hat at these little meetings. And that helped finance my first apartment, by the way. I got my first apartment before I got out of high school. I left home in my senior year. And but anyway, so this, they also had a deal there, and I've got to go ahead and say this real fast. They have the class favorites. Well, because of the student union thing, I got nominated as most likely to succeed, and they also had another one, the most likely to die before he's 21. That was me and George Bradley. We tied for that. But anyway, they kicked me out of school, okay? Kicked me out of school because of my stuff. Right up, came time to graduate. My mom I'd already left home. My mother had cancer surgery, and she was home recuperating. And I went home on my motorcycle. I used to get a whipping for riding a motorcycle too, by the way. So I went home in my motorcycle. First thing I did when I left home was trade my car for a motorcycle. And anyway, I went home, and my mother was just beside herself because I was not going to be able to graduate from high school and all. So I went down. Anyway, I disbanded the student union. They let me back in. and I graduated, and then I went to work. I always worked, always had a job. I didn't want my parents to have to, always had a job. I worked after schools, I worked Saturdays, worked during the summers, and as a carpenter, and I cleaned the office during school, and I always worked hard, had money, paid for my own car, I bought my own clothes. I had this pride thing and wouldn't let it go. So anyway, but the drugs and the drinking started, and anyway, so. But here's the deal. I told you that my drinking was a little bit different. I was the guy that I don't care whether it was what it was drinking. I poured it down like it was like the last drop of fluid on a little planet. Just poured it down. I was always the drunkest guy at the party, and just couldn't get enough. And the more I drank, the thirstier I got. And this went on until, like I said, the other thing it was is I had when I was drunk, I had a big mouth, and I was a lie a lot. And one day I was telling everybody that I was going to California. So a week later, somebody said, "Hey, I hear you're going to California." "Oh yeah, I am." Well, I had to go now, right? Because, you know, I told everybody I was going to Europe. "Hey, I hear you're going to Europe." "Oh, I am. I'm buying a ticket next week." I went to Europe for 3 months. That didn't go so well for me. It didn't go so well for me. The good thing, though, is that when you got in trouble, all you had to do was get on a train or a bus or a plane or stick your thumb out, and you could go to a different place. And there was kids from all over the world that were doing the same thing, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. There had to have been a guardian angel watching after me, because I was able to come back in one piece. Anyway, there was an old cabinet man when I got out of high school. He was a Church of God preacher who did cabinets now, and when I got out of school, we didn't call it homeless then. We called it crashing at someone's house. Hippies, we used to do that. We would crash it here or crash there. I crashed in an old step van for a while. Anyway, the old cabinet man gave me a job. And so anyway, I'm not going to get into all that, but I used to run to the saw. Okay? I really needed that job. And so anyway, he taught me a lot, and but I kept having to go to California or having to go to Europe or having to go, you know. When I would come back, he would always give me that same job back. And anyway, the last time I loaded up and I went to California, I turned 21 in California. And for someone like me to turn 21, that's kind of like giving a kid with diabetes the key to the candy store, you know. I mean, holy crap, you know. And out there they had these little baby beers, the little 6-ounce Olympias and Coors, and 26 cents. You could walk in one there and, you know. Anyway, it was just like, oh my God. So I started getting in trouble out there. I got a DUI out there, and then they started giving me these things called open container charges that they had out there. Now this is 1973 in California, and the laws are similar to what we out there are similar to what we have here now. They just don't like that. And anyway, there was an old judge there, and he just finally looked me in the eye and said, "Boy, I don't want to see you anymore." You know, he said, "You're not even old enough to drink, and I just don't want to see you anymore." Every time I would see him, he would give me a fine, and then he would give me so many days in jail suspended. He said, "If I see you again, you're going to do all them suspended days in jail." Well, I didn't like that idea too good. So anyway, I hooked up with a gal there from. She was from New York. She was an older woman. She was 25 or 26. And she was my kind of girl. I'm going to tell you that right now. Quick little example. she told me a story. She lived in Palm Desert. I lived up in the high desert, and she would come down into Yucca Valley for parties and stuff, and that's how I met her. But anyway, she'd come down for a party, and she said, I only had $2 in my wallet, and I had to decide whether to buy a bottle of wine or to put $2 in my car so I could go home. That's my kind of girl there. Guess which one she did? Bought the wine, right? Shared it with a guy like me, and he put gas in her car. This is out there in the deserts of California. It was a different thing. People lived out. So anyway, I got in trouble out there, and I got in my little truck and hauled ass back to Houston. And by this time, things had been different. The drinking was day and night. I went into the union hall down there and became a union carpenter. They gave me a journeyman's card based on my experience. And I would show up out there with my long hair and my overalls and try to be a journeyman carpenter. And after you've been drunk for a week or so at a time, it's kind of hard out there in 115-degree heat out there in the summertime in Palm Springs. And so anyway, the worst thing could ever happen, I got run off of a union job. And thank God. They'd put me on some simple little thing and I couldn't do it, and they set me up on the roof with the apprentices nailing off. And at lunchtime, like I said, my right hand, we didn't have nail guns, right hand, I'd have to switch over to the left and hit for a while, you know. And anyway, mercifully at lunch, the guy came down and said, son, you need to go back to the hall. Well, my two major defects are dishonesty and pride. They have dogged me my entire life. You know, pride's kind of like that drunk that's laying down in the gutter and you try to reach down to pick him up and he says, I don't need your help, and he spits on your shoes. I was that kind of guy. You know, it's like, I don't need your help. I do not need your help. And I would not allow, especially my parents or anybody like that, to help me. So anyway, I got off that roof. They gave me my check. Went and cashed it. I went to the pool hall. I had about 4 or 5 cold beers, and all of a sudden I was feeling pretty good, from dehydration to exhilaration. And I began to tell whoever was listening, I got to go back to Texas and help my brother. And I had a brother who has schizophrenia. He wound up in the mental ward out there, and I did nothing to help him. I helped put him there, actually. So anyway, I got in my old truck and I came on back to Houston, and I stayed with my uncle. I had an uncle 9 years older. I stayed with him and his wife for a little bit, and the old cabinet maker gave me my job back again. But things were different now. Things were different now. I was pouring down a lot of alcohol every day. I'd get out on the job and I wasn't quite with it anymore. Wasn't quite there. And that old man, he demanded that your work look like his work. And he didn't put up with any kind of foolishness, and I was having a hard time with that. Well, the old man had a son. His son's name was Larry. Larry was a bad drunk. He was a scoundrel on top of that. And so the old man did some subcontract work for a company that Larry had talked his way into as a superintendent. And so Larry kind of sized me up and took me on as a project. And he talked me into leaving the old man. I left the old man before he fired me. And I went to work for Larry's company as a carpenter foreman for McCall & Sons Construction. We were doing commercial jobs. And so I went out there on that job. And Larry was had 6 months sober. And he spent his time in Spring Branch Club while I was out there trying to run this job. And it wasn't going so well. So anyway, the big boss, named Ken McCall, one of the finest men I've ever known, he told Larry he had a big job going out in Sharpstown Mall, and he said, I want that carpenter foreman over there with me, and that was me. And I thought, oh no, Ken McCall will find me. Now by now, folks, I'm drinking about a quart of gin every day, plus 3 or 4 beers. My routine was I would get off work, stop at the first package store, a little 7-Eleven, get 6 beers, and I would drink them on the way to the liquor store. The liquor store was right across the street from my apartments. And so I'd drink 3 or 4 beers, and then I would drink almost that entire quart of gin, and that's what I did. I would get up and try and go to work the next day. If I wasn't working, I was drinking and passing out, drinking and passing out. The friends, there were no more friends. I had become a real problem. They had a party. They said, "Don't tell Milton, because there's going to be trouble if I showed up." Anyway, so Larry, let's get real fast. Larry got me to my very first AA meeting, and he told me don't say anything, but I did when they called on me, and you people all laughed, and it was music to my ears. It was just music to my ears. It was so wonderful, and you told me to come back, you know. Now, I thought a lot of you, I was 22 when I got here, okay? So I thought a lot of them old guys, they just probably had sons and daughters that were drunks, and they wanted, that's the reason they were being nice to me. That's what I thought. But anyway, I did keep coming back. Larry took me over to his sponsor, and they took me in and sat me down. The deal over there, Spring Branch Club was in its very first year. It come from 8373 Westview. There were little meetings all over, and then everybody would gather at the club and go their ways and whatever. And anyway, after the meeting, they'd bring me to the club, sit me down, and would talk with me and tell me about AA and everything. And so anyway, what do you need, Larry? You think I need water? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so they sat me down and said, look, anybody can stay sober for 24 hours. And I laughed. I said, you don't know me. Because I had announced myself to my friends at the time that I wasn't going to drink anymore. And guess what? I couldn't even make a whole day. The liar, I couldn't back that one up at all. So I'd given that up. So anyway, then the other thing was about this God thing. So they read to me about. They read to me the part about being constitutionally incapable of being honest, and I thought maybe that might be me. So I got up, literally got up to walk out. I said, whoa, where are you going? He said, well, that could be me. He said, well, that's probably the most honest thing I've ever heard. Why don't, you said if there is a God that he might be able to help, don't you think he might be able to help you with your lying? And I went, well, yeah, that made sense. That made sense. Listen, folks, I wanted a brand new life. That's what I wanted. I didn't know if I was an alcoholic or not. I didn't care. I knew there was something bad wrong. I didn't know what it was, though. I knew there was something bad wrong. Honestly, when I found out I was an alcoholic, I thought that was pretty damn good news. Wow, promoted to alcoholic. I feared worse. I feared worse. I did. I really feared worse. My brother, like I said, had been locked up for schizophrenia, and I was doing some crazy stuff and thinking some crazy stuff. So anyway, that I had a name now. Okay, I'm an alcoholic. That's great. I will tell you, it was a while before I began to understand. I was in a meeting, and someone said, this much whiskey can kill me. And when they said that, something inside here went, oh, that's true for me. I recognized it. My innermost self said, yes, that's true. Yes, that's true. I knew that was true for me too. Anyway, the teaching kept going on. Finally, I was always in a bad place. Let me tell you how I stay sober. Let me tell you how I still do it sometimes when things are really, really bad. They gave me a little card, had 24 hours, the Serenity Prayer on it, and you open it up and they got the 12 steps, 12 traditional little card. They gave me the little card. They also gave me the big book, the 24-hour book, all that stuff. I put that in my wallet, so I went out onto that job with the big boss. And every time I would get in a bad place or things would get sketchy, I would go to the bathroom and I would read that Serenity Prayer over and over and over. I'd get smoothed out, I'd go back to work. And that's what I did. When I got off work, instead of stopping at that first place, that's what they told me. You don't have to stop at that first place. You can stop at the payphone and call me. And that's what I would do. When you come home, you take a shower, you get cleaned up, you go to the club and you wait for the meeting to start. And that's what I did. I went to over 500 meetings my first year. I didn't have a wife or kids or anything. There was no reason for me not to be there. So I was at a meeting there. I got in a bad place a lot. That's what we used to call it. Got in a bad place. I didn't even know I was in a bad place sometimes. I was so angry and didn't even know it. So what they did is, here, they handed me a pencil and a piece of paper and said, let's find out what's really the matter with you. And I would write, Dear God, what's bothering me? And then I would just write, stream of consciousness, the first thing right down the road. And magically at the bottom of that page, I would find out what was really bothering me. And from those first pages, those became my first, fourth, and fifth step. And I started uncovering some stuff. You know, I hated my mom and my dad. Now, you're not supposed to hate your mom. You're not supposed to, but I did. And I had to look at that on paper, and I had to share that with my sponsor. I found a whole lot of other things like that. Larry was not a good guy. Larry and Kathy, and Larry's sponsor was named Bob, and Bob was not a good guy. But they helped me a lot. But anyway, we went on a hunting trip. Said it before, I'll say it again. Please don't put a gun in the hands of somebody that's brand new sober. That's not a good idea. Not a good idea. So anyway, we go to Gonzales on this deer hunting trip. Got sober at the end of August, so this is hunting season. Hadn't been very, 2 or 3 months. I don't know what it was. We go down to western Idaho. I got a 30-30 lever action, scope on it. I'm a good shot, by the way. So we're out there deer hunting, and at the end of the day, I'm out in the field walking around. Here comes a little Jeep. Here comes Larry, Kathy, Bob, and Joy, and a little Jeep. And they had to cross my path, and I threw the gun up on my shoulder. They went on. I didn't think nothing of it. So that night, couldn't sleep as usual. It's not unusual, really, when you first come in, not to be able to sleep. Not when you drink as much booze as I did, and you drink as much coffee as I did. It's kind of hard to sleep, So anyway, I got up, and Bob was he's my grand sponsor, if you like that term, and Bob looked at me, and he was an old, crusty cowboy son of a bitch. And he looked at me and he said, you are the angriest little son of a bitch I ever laid eyes on. I didn't know what he was talking about. He said, I thought when we drove across you, you were going to shoot all 4 of us. I've never seen such an angry little son of a bitch as you. And I had no clue as to what he was talking about. I truly did not. So it kind of rocked and shocked me there. So anyway, as time went on, I began to understand about that anger, about the resentment, those resentments. We write them down on paper, the resentments, our fears and all that stuff. And I had already been taught that about writing and stuff. And so I worked that 4th and 5th step, and I uncovered that stuff. And those things that, I shared a little bit with you, about the beatings. There were some other things that happened, and these things happen to everybody, okay? They don't make you an alcoholic. But what they do is that, and the books goes through this, unless we deal with this stuff, we're probably going to drink again. And the way it's explained to me, it's the reason you can't smoke weed, okay? It's the reason you can't take pills. Anything that blocks you off from your higher power, an alcoholic, after a time, he'll want to drink. He will want to drink. Told this story last week. I'm going to tell it again. Went through a bad way. The happiest day of my life was the day my son Chris was born. A year later, his mom got in her brand new little car and drove off with him. my whole world went to hell in a handbasket. Bob was there. My business that was doing so well, I didn't even want to work. All I could do was I was beside myself because I was in fear. His mama was one of us, and she was getting herself a good story too. And I was afraid for him. I was afraid for my little boy. Anyway, I was losing it. And I had a house that I'd built out in the country. And anyway, the last straw, you know how you've had all you can stand and one more thing happens. It was kind of one of them deals. And I flooded out the whole back of my house the second time. And I couldn't stand it. I just couldn't stand it. And I was so mad. I mean, I just lost it. And I told God, if this is the way you treat your kids, I don't want to be one. And I meant it. I meant it. I'd been sober about 6 years. And man, I was pissed. This was 11 o'clock on a Saturday. By sheer habit, I went to the speaker meeting Saturday night. And just by sheer habit, the night before I'd been in Mo and Joe's Honky Tonk dancing with some drunk girl with some other AAs. But anyway, I was sitting in that meeting, and Art was telling her story, and about 3/4 through that meeting, all of a sudden, that phenomena of craving opened its nasty little eyes, and I wanted to take a drink. Sitting there in that AA meeting. Scared me, shocked me. Got up, didn't say a word to anybody. I drove out to my house out in the country, and it dawned on me. I realized what had happened. That 9 hours, a little more than 9 hours after I told God I didn't want to be as, I wanted to take a drink. Anything that separates me, I'll want to drink again. And that's the reason that these resentments, these fears, this anger, this crazy behavior, this is the reason that this separates me from God, because that's the only thing that keeps somebody like me sober. The only thing. It was an absolute miracle. I could not believe when I got up the next day and didn't have to drink, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. But it happened. It kept happening. It kept happening. I haven't got too much longer, do I? Good. Part of the problem that I've had, and he talked about it, I could sit here, we could have a tale of 4 wives. I'm married to a wonderful woman now, oh my God. We've been married coming up on 18 years. But man, I've had some knockdown drag-outs with some of the others. Oh my God, some terrible, terrible, unwanted divorces, and didn't have to drink. Lost all my stuff more than once, everything. Got in the sales thing and lost all my stuff, even my own self-respect. Hit bottom. I hit bottom sober, absolute hit bottom. Daryl talks about it, how he was laying on the ground, just can't go on anymore. So I hit a sober bottom, terrible, and got up. It takes some major surgery for some of us, and that's what it takes to get right to the end, where the only thing we can rely upon is this power greater than ourselves to show us what it is that we need to do. So when I got into this really bad place, I went through some periods of depression. I used to talk about every 10 years I would get married and divorce, and then I would work the 12 steps. That's about what would happen. I would back myself all the way down and have to start over again, do a written step, 5, 6 going down the road. Anyway, so one day at a time I would take a drink. I want to tell one quick little story, and I think it has something to do with what's going on here tonight. When I got into the worst place ever, I realized that this selfishness and self-centeredness was the root of my problem. It hit me like just a ton of bricks, and I realized that this is what was killing me. You know, the book talks about, that we have a new employer. It also talks about that we play the role that he assigns us. I didn't want to play that role. I wanted some grandiose role. I wanted to be some big dog. I wanted to be rich and famous. I wanted to be this and that. I didn't want the role that he had assigned me. And so I kept, like I said, bumping my head up again. Anyway, what happened was I got to a place where I realized, and so I learned a little trick, and it saved my life, and it goes like this. Every day, do something for somebody else and don't get found out. That's a little trick that saved my life. And that helped me. I also learned other things. Get a puppy. Go fishing. Do something where you're not thinking about yourself. Work with others. Work with others. Anything. I've been blessed. I've always worked for myself, and I've been blessed to be able to bring new people in and help provide them with little temporary jobs or something, and help them get going and whatever. It's been a tremendous blessing for me. Rob worked for me on his first through here. I don't know if he remembers it or not, but and I try to say this to all the guys that I get to work with. I try to say this to them. If you can learn how to stay sober, you can have an amazing life. You can have an amazing life. And that is the truth. If you can learn how to stay sober, you can have an amazing life. I have one today. I know it can pass. I know that it can't stay there. One drink, all goes away. One drink, all the good stuff goes away. The last thing, my wife shared this with me. She learned it from Monsignor Campbell in Ohio. And love is spelled T-I-M-E. That's how love is spelled. Quick story. We take in stray dogs at our shop. 2 of them got together. We had 11 puppies. January the 1st, 2012. My wife was going through some severe back problems during that time. Unknown to her, she had a little piece of a bone that was stuck in her sciatic nerve. And everything that she tried, chiropractic, acupuncture, shots, everything, wouldn't work. And they only found that in the surgery. But anyway, she was going through this period, and those little puppies were born. And the mama dog was about 30 pounds. The daddy dog was about 70, 80 pounds. Big Alaskan Malamute, okay? So she had all these puppies, and these puppies were tearing the mama up. And so after about 4 or 5 weeks, she quit feeding them because they were literally tearing her up. So talked to the vet. Vet says, well, get some puppy chow, put a little milk on it, and let them. So every day after work, now my wife works in the medical center. She has an hour to an hour and a half to come home with that sore back. She'd come home, we'd saddle up, and we'd drive another 30 minutes to our shop so she could take care of those little puppies. She loved those little puppies. She had to make sure that they were being taken care of right. That is love. Love is spelled T-I-M-E. Look around yourself. Look around yourself. There are people in this humble house that are spending their T-I-M-E. They love you, they love this place, and they love sobriety. We got some of them sitting here. George always says, I love this program. I hope he never quits saying that. I'm looking at some of you right in the eye now. Love spelled T-I-M-E. Thank you for having me. Good night.